Alright guys, so today my travels take me to the Port City Marina here in downtown Wilmington, North Carolina. And right now I'm walking on the establishing shot of the T-Bird's death scene, where the car launches and explodes over the Cape Fear River here in Wilmington. I believe this is a first on YouTube, first documented ever. I don't know anyone else that has this location covered, so I feel really honored to be able to be doing this. Crow means the world to me. It's probably my favorite movie of all time. So right now what I'm walking on is a parking area for like boat slip owners and stuff, because we are on a marina, and behind me is the Cape Fear River. What this was back in 1993 when filming was going on was a part of the Almont Shipping Company. They were a importer, like storage warehouse. This was a very industrial area back in 1993, and obviously things changed. This area has been extremely redeveloped, but believe it or not, what I'm walking on is a part of the original series of warehouses. This would have been a big dock, and this is original. The only really way I know that is historic aerials. Believe it or not, right here, right behind this orange Honda CR-V would have been where we first see the Ford Thunderbird with Eric Draven walking behind it. So in that scene, the camera pans up and there's kind of a track system on the left-hand side, as well as a concrete walkway that you can see would go out this way, and a warehouse building with some blue slats on the roof, or at least it looks blue in the film. And the reason I found this is because when doing editing for a later part of this video, I realized that where I shot down here couldn't have been where the car started, essentially, because of this shot. So we're going to cut in here with some historic aerial shots, just because the area has changed so much in the 30 plus years since The Crow filmed, and it's going to give us a better point of reference to what I'm talking about. I'm going to drop a pin right here. That's where we would have been standing in the video. The left-hand image is dated February 3rd, 1993. And I think this is a really cool added bonus, because this is taken when The Crow would have been actively in production. Now, I don't have an exact date for when they filmed T-Bird's death scenes. I'm sure it was filmed over a series of night shoots, but I do not have a specific set of dates, but we can ultimately assume it was around this time, as The Crow filmed in late winter of 92 and early winter 93. So, using these two images, you can see that the dock portion of the Almont Shipping Company remains today, but the rest of it is completely redeveloped into the Port City Marina. Now let's compare the 1993 historic aerial to a shot from the film, and we can see where the railway system would have been that I was speaking about earlier, as well as the concrete walkway in front of it and the warehouse building in the background. I also wanted to add, in that scene you can see these big metal beams that I believe were a part of the crane system for the shipping company. There's remnants of those piers on this dock, going all the way up. And back over there is where the car would have been, right where that CR-V is. Where we see the car begin to drive from is not the dock that it launches from. Where I'm standing now on this boat dock is where the other warehouse that the car launches from would have stood. Now, this is the warehouse that you get a really good shot of right at the end scene where the car launches into the river. The warehouse, I believe, says A Seaboard on the front of it, and that would have been something from the shipping company at the time. But that warehouse was right here. And like I was saying, this land that the warehouse sat on is gone. They dredged all this when they developed this to be a marina. It's a beautiful area, but it is a bummer that there's really not much left of this, but time marches on. So now I'm standing here on the end of this dock. This would have been right about the area where the car would have actually launched into the river. That warehouse had like a dock of its own at the time. That's no longer here. This is a completely new dock from where this area was redeveloped, as you can see behind me. Behind me is actually a houseboat community. It's kind of interesting. And then just a regular boat dock. Nothing close to like it looked in the film, but I'm really happy that I'm able to get this documented and nailed down. And we're back to historic aerials for a comparison, and unfortunately, unlike the location before, there is nothing left to match from this location. Between these two images, you can get a pretty good idea of just how heavily developed this area is now, with the land being gone that the warehouse was sitting on, being dredged for that marina. We'll drop a pin on this dot where we were standing, just because that's literally the closest I think I could have gotten to standing where the warehouse would have been. Now, I was able to find this really cool shot, courtesy of the Star News here in Wilmington, of the Almont Shipping Company as it sat in 2005. This was likely one of the last photos taken of the site, as the whole series of warehouses and the rest of the dock was demolished in 2005 at some point. What I really like about this is not only are we able to see the location in its entirety, but it helps us break down that scene a little bit better. Now we can see the concrete dock portion like we were discussing before with that walkway. That's where the car sits and where we see it drive off from. Now I can only assume the reason they chose to switch docks instead of staying on the one they were already filming on was due to safety and getting the shot that they wanted. I think if they would have tried to have launched the car and blow it up with that dock being in such close proximity to the other warehouse, it would have caused some damage to that property. And you have to keep in mind, this was an active business and warehouse in 1993 when they were filming. So they chose to launch the car down this longer ramp and blow it up over the water. And I believe all the shots of the car actually driving, with the exception of the initial takeoff scene, were filmed on this dock. I also want to add that I believe a portion of the skank chase scene, where he's trying to catch up to T-Bird in an attempt to save him, I believe a portion of that scene was also filmed at this site. I know for a fact that scene was a use of miniatures and then practical driving on the back lot, but I believe there's a small snippet of a scene where he's actually driving on location in between one of these two buildings. I don't have actual confirmation on that, but that's what I believe based on what I'm seeing. The crow flame silhouette scene that kind of marks the end of T-Bird's death. I guess Eric Draven, he's drawing it in the lighter fluid while the car is driving down the boat dock. That whole scene was not filmed here whatsoever. That entire scene was filmed in between sound stages at the time Carroll Co. Studios on 23rd Street here in Wilmington. I guess because they could control fire better there. They didn't want to open burn here. So I just thought that would be a cool thing to add to this. All right, guys, I think that just about wraps this video up. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. This video means the world to me. The crow means the world to me. So I hope you can like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and I plan on doing more crow locations as they come. So we'll see where the next one takes us.